very important foundationally to show resources that are available in an emergency situation and resources that are available to this detective and resources that were used at the time that he was dealing with the situation on Rockingham.
Same objection, Your Honor.
The objection is sustained, Mr. Shapiro, as to the number of officers that were present at the Friday night incident.
I take it that you have special training to have the classification of being a special unit detective.
No, I don't know. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think that's based on a person's work history and experience.
What about special abilities?
I would not be the one to ask that question if I have special abilities.
Well, I don't want you to be modest.
I take a lot of pride in my job, Mr. Shapiro, yes.
And you wouldn't be in that important position if you didn't have the credentials, the experience, the knowledge, and the background to have such an important detective job, would you?
That's probably true, yes.
And as such, you are familiar, are you not, with the procedures that are mandated by the Los Angeles Police Department for investigative techniques in homicide cases, are you not?
Yes.
Are you familiar with Los Angeles Police Department Chronological Record Form 3.11.6?
Yes.
And is that something that is used to record in depth the chronological record of the investigation in a homicide case?
The chronological record is a record that's used to, as time permits, to make a chronological entry on a log as to activities that have taken place in that investigation.
And doesn't that form require the recording of the dates and times of the initial notification and of all investigative contacts and processes?
It would be impossible to list all investigative dates and processes.
My question is,
The majority, yes.
Isn't that what the manual that you're trained under and the policy requires?
Again, it may state that. However, that record is used as time permits in an investigation to record functions and activities that have occurred in that investigation.
My question is, does it state that?
I don't know the exact wording.
Do you have Form 3.11.6 that you used in this case?
I believe my partner has kept a chronological record on just regular paper. I don't think we have the chronological record in the case.
Would you take a moment to review your materials and see if you have such a record?
I think I just answered that. I believe my partner kept a chronological record on regular white paper instead of using the form because the form wasn't available when we first started the case.
But
we didn't have it in our possession.
You say you think. Would it help you to refresh your memory?
I know he has, Mr.
So
Shapiro.
you're sure that you don't have
I'm
this form?
positive, yes.
So the chronological record was kept by your partner on a piece of blank white paper?
Yes, he's kept
Again,
a...
objection. Irrelevant. What does this have to do with the motion to suppress?
I assume that we're heading in some
Yes.
direction here.
Yes, we are.
All right. Do you want to make an offer of proof about this chronological record as it relates to this motion?
Yes, Your Honor, that we will show that improper procedures were followed from the very beginning of this investigation until the time that Detective Vannatter has testified, that proper forms and procedures as outlined by the Los Angeles Police Department have not been followed, that times, dates, and records of events that should be recorded are not recorded, and quite frankly, Your Honor, this will go to the credibility of Detective Vannatter and his testimony here today.
May I be heard, Your Honor?
Yes.
I fail to see how the use of a particular form or the use of a blank page in lieu of that form has anything to do with the propriety of the officer's conduct in searching the residence at 360 Rockingham. I'm sorry, Your Honor, I just don't see the connection. The officers used what they could at the time that they could under a pressing need and an urgent situation. The issue was the information required to be recorded on the chronological record recorded in some manner, not whether they used a form that was pre-printed or not. And I'm sorry, Your Honor, but I just can't see the relevance of this line of questioning to whether or not proper procedures were followed with respect to the decision to go over the wall and do a cursory search of the grounds.
Well, with reference to the utilization of specific LAPD forms or procedures that don't present constitutional issues, I really don't see the relevance of whether every I was dotted and every T crossed. However, with regard to whether there's impeaching information within or missing from some of these records, there could indeed be some relevance. I'm just, I guess, going to have to hear a question by question. You make your appropriate objections, and I'll make the rulings at the time.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right.
Have you reviewed the chronological record that was done by your partner?
No.
Would you take a moment, please look at that, please?
Certainly.
Do you have one available?
No. My partner has the books in the hallway.
Okay, maybe the district attorney might
If
be
we
able...
could get them from him, I could,
Or maybe the district attorney might have a copy here.
it's a possibility.
Detective Vannatter, are you familiar with something known as a homicide book, or in the vernacular, a murder book?
Yes,
And is that something that is routinely prepared by the Los Angeles Police Department?
yes,
And is part of that murder book the chronological record?
yes.
Do you know where to find the chronological record in the murder book?
Yeah, it's in section 1.
Would you look for that, please?
Okay?
Have you located the chronological record?
Yes, I sure have.
And how many pages does it consist of?
7 to date.
7 to date.
Yeah, 6 and 3/4 to date.
And there's, by policy, to be a chronological record for each crime scene, is that correct?
No, there's normally one chronological record kept for the case.
For the case. So that would,
Yes.
that would include then the crime scene at Bundy,
Yes,
what you later found to be the crime scene at Rockingham,
yes.
and the crime scene in Chicago.
Well, that was a separate investigation. We were not privy to what was going on in Chicago.
You didn't have any detectives there?
We did, but we were not personally involved in that. We had no information at that time what was going on there.
Well, you say you were not privy to it, so the Chicago Police Department didn't tell the LAPD what was going on in Chicago?
No, you're asking a question. May I explain that question?
No, you can answer my question.
Okay.
Objection, Your Honor, the witness should be allowed to explain his answer, especially because he's being questioned as an expert in this field.
Well, I think he's trying to give an answer, but I don't think you're going to try to explain Mr. Shapiro's.
No. I'm going to try to explain the answer to his question.
That we would like.
We have a 2,000-mile separation. We have detectives with instructions to go to Chicago and complete an investigation, while my partner and myself are working here in Los Angeles. We did not have a constant communication with the detective back there, so I would say that I was not fully aware of everything that was going on back there.
Would you say that this is under your jurisdiction as part of your investigation, or is this not part of your investigation?
It's part of the overall investigation of this homicide, yes.
And does the proper procedure for Los Angeles Police Department require a chronological record for that investigation, yes or no?
Yes.
Is there a chronological record for that investigation, or is that included in the 7 pages?
No, I believe there's a separate record kept with the other investigation.
Okay, and have you seen that?
No,
Would you look for that, please?
I don't have those books. All I have is the investigation that's been going on in Los Angeles here.
Well, you just said it would be proper for Los Angeles Police Department to have a chronological record, and my question is there such a record? And if there is, would you show it to us, please?
Again, Your Honor, I'm going to object. This is form over substance. We're still talking about whether forms were used and certain forms were filled out and who's keeping them. This has nothing to do with a decision made under urgent conditions to go over a wall or not to go over a wall.
The objection is sustained.
Your Honor, may I be heard on that, please?
Well, Mr. Shapiro, let me just state one thing. I recall, at least at some point during the course of these proceedings, a large envelope being handed to you by Ms. Clark, and a statement by Ms. Clark saying this relates to Chicago. I don't recall exactly when that was, but it was during the course of this. And if there are discovery issues to take up, I'm willing to do it if it's necessary, but I don't think it's necessary to do it in the course of this particular motion.
Your Honor, may I be heard briefly?
Yes.
This is not a discovery proceeding, clearly. This is a proceeding to determine the truth of the testimony from the witness stand. What we want to establish is, if there was a chronological record done, perhaps we haven't seen it. We'd like to see it. If all they have are the 7 pages, we'd like to establish that because we believe through impeachment, we will show that the testimony given from the witness stand is not true.
Well, Mr. Shapiro, this whole Chicago chronology, whether it exists or doesn't exist, I just don't see that it's relevant to this particular proceeding.
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective, regarding the 7-page chronology that you have, that should, according to your policy, include the dates and times of all investigative contacts and processes. Is that correct?
If that's physically possible to do, yes.
So you would expect to find in there what took place when you went to Rockingham. Is that correct?
You would expect to find an entry there that would indicate that we were at Rockingham, yes.
And you'd expect to find an entry as to the time you arrived at Rockingham.
Isn't that noted? I haven't looked. I don't know whether that's noted or not.
I'm just asking if you'd expect to find that. Yes or no?
It could be there, it could not be there.
I know it could or couldn't be there. We all know that. The question is, would you, without looking at it, sir, would you close the book, please?
Certainly.
Would you expect to find it there?
Yes.
And would you expect to find there notations that this was an emergency situation?
No.
Would you expect to find there that backup units were called, if they were?
Not necessarily.
Would you expect to find there that paramedics were called?
Your Honor, again, same objection. This line of questioning is simply not relevant to a decision made under emergency conditions as to whether or not to go over a wall.
The objection to this particular question is overruled.
Would you expect to find notations that a paramedic unit was called?
Yes.
Probably not. You would probably find that under a section of the book that relates to ambulance information.
Would you expect to find notations that you notified communications that you were at another location?
Not necessarily.
I'm asking you, would you expect to find that?
Not necessarily.
You may or you may not.
Exactly.
Are you familiar with the Los Angeles Police Department follow-up report?
Yes.
After you go to a crime scene, if there are additional factors that are not included because of time constraints in the initial report, you do a follow-up report. Is that correct?
Again, Your Honor, I'm going to object. It's irrelevant.
Overruled.
A follow-up is done in general terms to attempt to explain what has happened. It's not a detailed description of the entire case.
An attempt to explain what has happened. Let me ask you this. Did you file an initial report outlining what you testified here today in an official LAPD, on an official LAPD form?
Same objection, Your Honor. What does it matter whether it's filed on an official form or the information is contained on a blank piece of paper? The issue is what information and what decisions were made and why they were made. This line of questioning is going to minutia as to whether or not a form was used or whether a blank piece of paper was used. I don't see the relevance.
Well, is the import of your question whether a specific form was made or whether in fact a report was prepared?
The import is clearly whether a report was prepared.
All right, the objection then is overruled. You can answer that, sir.
A follow-up report was prepared.
Was an initial report prepared?
I don't know what you mean by an initial report. There was an initial death report and crime report that was filed.
I'm saying an initial report of you and the 3 other detectives' activities at Rockingham. Did you file an initial report?
No.
You filed a follow-up report.
Yes.
How much later did you file the follow-up report?
Your Honor, objection. Objection irrelevant. Whether reports were filed at certain times and what forms were used, how can that be relevant to whether or not an appropriate decision was made under the circumstances to go over a wall?
Mr. Shapiro, are you expecting to offer some sort of information from a report that is at odds with what the testimony was here?
Yes, Your Honor.
So this is a foundation to that?
Yes.
All right. With that understanding, the objection's overruled.
You did file a follow-up report, is that correct?
My partner did, yes.
And when was that done?
The date should be on the report. I don't know exactly.
Have you seen the report?
I've seen it, yes.
Did you participate in the writing of the report?
No, I did not.
Did you give any information that was later contained in that report?
I must have. We talk all the time.
Well, that's the purpose of the report, isn't it? What Vannatter did, what Phillips did, what the 4 detectives did there. One person writes the report, isn't that correct?
The purpose of the report is an overall view of the investigation.
And have you read that report for errors and omissions?
I've read the report. Not recently.
When you read it, did you find any errors or omissions in the report?
None that I recall.
If there were errors or omissions, as a detective, you would correct those with a supplemental report, would you not?
If there were errors, I don't know what you mean by omissions. Again, that's just a general overall report that gives a general outline of the investigation.
Are you satisfied with the content of the report as far as accuracy and veracity regarding what transpired at Rockingham?
Am I satisfied with it? I don't know what's contained in there regarding what occurred at Rockingham. I'm satisfied that my partner did a comprehensive report, yes.
I thought you said you read it.
I did read it, but again, I haven't read it recently, and I don't recall what's in the report, Mr. Shapiro.
Would you take a moment to read it and refresh your memory, please?
Certainly.
How long is that report, do you know?
I don't know. Okay. Yes, I'm satisfied with what's in it.
In the report, in the 3rd paragraph, it says upon arrival that you noticed a Bronco, and the vehicle was parked at an angle to the curb with the rear end jutting out into the roadway.
Okay.
Is that accurate?
Yes, the rear end was sticking out farther than the front end.
Well, it says into the roadway. What is that? What did you mean, or what did your partner mean by that term?
Well, the vehicle is parked on the roadway. where it was parked as part of the roadway. It was, the rear end was sticking farther out into the roadway than the front end
How
was.
far was the rear sticking out further?
I don't know, I didn't measure it, sir.
Well, this was an important event for you, was it not?
There were a lot of things occurring at that time. I didn't measure it, Mr. Shapiro. I don't know how far out it was as compared to the front end.
But this was, you would agree, one of your very key important observations
At that point,
that led you to going into the house, was it not?
no, it just appeared that the vehicle was parked unusual, like it had been parked in haste. I wouldn't say that was not the catalyst that caused me to go in.
But Detective Furman said that that was a very important aspect and caused him considerable consternation and led him as one of the main ingredients to going into the house. You would say he was wrong.
Objection, that misstates testimony.
Sustained.
Now, how long was the car at the scene before it was moved, the Bronco?
I don't know.
Do you have any records to refresh your memory as to when it was towed?
No, I don't. I might. I don't know. I can look in the book if you would like me to do that.
Would that be in the chronological log?
No, it would probably be under the vehicle section of there. I don't know. I could look and see.
All right, would you do that, please?
Certainly. It would indicate on the vehicle report itself that the vehicle was removed at 15:30 hours, 3:30 in the afternoon.
Now, how many hours was it there from the time you made your initial observation to the time it was removed?
Oh, it would have been sometime between 5 and 5:30 in the morning until 3:30 in the afternoon.
Would that give you sufficient time to ask somebody to go measure how far the car was out?
I never did that, sir.
My question was, would it...
Sure, absolutely. I never did that, though.
I take it that your experience as a senior detective, that when the criminalist came out, you would want him to photograph the car.
Yes.
Again,
And you'd want him
objection.
to photograph the angle of the car.
Objection.
Excuse me just a moment.
The manner in which the investigation was conducted in terms of the collection of evidence has no bearing on the decision made to go over the wall. Some objections is irrelevant.
Overruled.
And the angle of the car would be important for something for you to record with your criminalist, is that correct?
I had the criminalist photograph, yes.
And you had him photograph it from a position where we could later review the angle of the car, isn't that correct?
I wasn't there when the photographing was done.
Well, you're in charge of this, aren't you?
Well, I'm one of the co-investigators.
Well,
You're placing more importance on me than I have, Mr. Shapiro. I wish I had that much importance.
Well, who's in charge of this investigation?
Who's in charge of this investigation?
who's
The
in
Los
charge?
Angeles Police Department, where I work.
Okay, so Willie Williams is in charge, is that correct?
That would be the ultimate responsibility, yes.
And out in the field, who was in charge?
Myself and my partner.
And as far as collecting evidence, who's in charge?
We direct a criminalist to do that.
Okay. And you direct the criminalist and the photographer to take pictures, don't you?
Exactly.
Okay, did you direct the criminalist and photographer to take pictures of the Bronco?
I was not there when that was done.
Did you ask him to do it?
I asked the criminalist to have it photographed, yes.
Did you tell him why you wanted it photographed?
Yes,
Or
I did.
Or did you just leave it up to the photographer to take some pictures? Maybe take a picture of the tire, maybe take a picture of the gas tank?
Objection argumentative.
Sustained.
I mean, isn't it somebody's job to tell someone what type of pictures you should take?
They were told what type of pictures to take.
By whom?
I told the criminalist.
Thank you. And you've seen photographs of the Bronco as it was taken by the criminalist?
Yes,
And do those accurately depict the position of the car when you arrived?
yes.
They're not distorted in any way, are they?
Well, objection, that calls for speculation. Let the witness see the pictures that counsel's referring to.
Sustained.
Have you seen the pictures?
Yes,
Are they
I
just-
can see the pictures right here.
Are there other pictures that were
For
taken?
the record, the witness is referring to photograph A of Peoples
Is that people 6?
6, Your Honor?
I believe so.
Have you seen any other photographs of the Bronco
8.
parked in a position that you observed it? when
I've
you
seen a
initially
number of
arrived?
photographs, yes.
You've seen those?
Yes.
And, well, you've answered the question. They properly depict what you observed when you
Well,
arrived.
objection, that's vague as to
Do
which
they
photographs.
properly depict what you observed when you arrived?
I'm sorry,
Vegas
Mr. Shapiro, which photographs now are you referring to? Are
Any
you referring
photographs? I asked him a wide-open question. In the hundreds of photographs that were taken, have you seen any photographs of the Bronco at the scene at Rockingham? His answer was yes. My question now is, are those photographs accurate, and do they depict, any of these photographs, depict what you observed when you arrived?
Again, objection. Counsel is attempting to ascertain, apparently, whether any of the photographs taken depict the angle at which the rear end was jutting out. And unless this witness is permitted to review all of the photographs taken at this time, he's not going to be able to give an accurate answer. It's vague as to which photographs he's referring to. There are numerous.
All right, Mr. Shapiro, I'm not sure how many photographs we're referring to. There have been a number of photographs that have been utilized during the course of this proceeding. If you're limiting your question to those that have been marked, that have been shown, and that the witness can take a look at, I think that that's a fair question. But just broadly asking a question like the one you're asking with regard to photographs about which the court doesn't know what you're referring to, I think it's just overbroad.
The question is whether the witness does, Your Honor. And my question to him is a simple one. Were there any photographs taken that accurately depict the vehicle at the time you arrived?
Well, that was not the question, Your Honor.
All right, that'll be a new question.
Okay. You can answer that if you're able to, sir.
So I understand the question. Were there photographs taken that accurately depict?
The position of the Bronco at the time you arrived at the scene.
I would have to say yes.
Thank you. Now, in the murder-up follow-up report on paragraph 3, it says the following. Peering into the locked vehicle's rear window, detectives observed a package with a label indicating a return address to O.J. Simpson Enterprises. A registration check of the vehicle revealed it to belong to Hertz Rental. Was that correct, of the observations that were made?
Yes, among a number of other observations.
Where in this report does it say that you or anybody else observed the shovel?
It doesn't.
Where in this report does it say that you or anyone else observed plastic?
It doesn't, but I observed it in the back of the car.
That wasn't my question.
I answered the question.
Thank
It
you.
doesn't, but I observed it in the car.
Motion to strike the last part is non-responsive.
I'll sustain as to the last portion.
Then it says, upon closer observation of the vehicle, detectives observed what appeared to be human blood near the handle on the driver's door. Is that correct?
If you're reading from the report, yes, that's correct.
And did you observe human blood?
I observed what I thought was blood. I thought it was human blood, if I can explain that.
No, my question is, did you observe human blood, yes or no?
What I believe to be human blood, yes.
You didn't put that in the report, that you believed it to be human blood, did you?
I didn't write the report. No, I didn't put it in any report.
And can you determine the difference between animal blood and human blood?
No, but based on my experience, and I can explain that very easily if you want me to.
I don't want you to.
Well,
Maybe
objection,
the
Your Honor.
people might want you to. I want you to answer the questions I ask.
Your Honor, this is unfair. He's being questioned as an expert. He's entitled to explain his answer.
Well, he does, though, have to answer the questions that are asked. And Ms. Clark, you will have a chance to question the witness further if you feel some additional explanation is warranted.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Would you describe the size of the blood that you saw?
It was a small spot, quarter, eighth of an inch.
And did you look at it with the naked eye or with some type of magnifying glass?
My naked eye.
Did you use some type of light to illuminate it?
Flashlight, yes.
Do you wear glasses?
I wear reading glasses, yes.
Did you use your glasses to look at this?
Yes.
And were you able to distinguish this from any other type of red stain as being human blood?
I believed it was blood.
I'm saying, my question was, were you able to distinguish this from any other type of red stain?
I believed it was a red stain. I believed it was blood.
Thank you. What about at the bottom of the door? Did you see any brush marks of what you believe to be blood?
No, I don't recall seeing that.
And that's not recorded anywhere in any of the reports, is there? Is that?
I don't know.
And that wasn't called to your attention by anyone, was it?
I don't recall seeing that. I can't answer the question.
When you and the three other detectives went to Mr. O.J. Simpson's residence, did you inform the Communications Division of your intentions?
I don't believe so.
Is
I
that-
didn't personally.
Did anyone to your knowledge?
No.
Is that standard procedure?
I very seldom inform Communications Division of my movements.
I just asked you if that's standard procedure.
Objection, that's irrelevant.
Sustained.
If somebody told you from Bunday to take Bunday to Sunset, take Sunset towards the beach to Rockingham and turn right on Rockingham and go 2 blocks, could you follow those directions?
Yeah, I believe I could, yes.
Did
Bundy makes a funny turn there, but yes, I believe I could.
Well, could you follow that funny turn or not?
Oh, I think so,
Objection,
yeah.
argumentative.
Sustained.
Could you find Sunset Boulevard from where you were? Without any directions?
From where I was on
From the
Bundy?
Bundy location, could you find Sunset Boulevard?
Yes, I worked that division for 3 years, yes.
Was all your work completed at the crime scene by the time you left to go to the Rockingham address?
No.
How many officers were at the crime scene that were higher ranking than you at the time you left?
There were higher ranking than me?
Yes.
I believe 3.
Who were they?
My lieutenant, John Rogers, and I believe a lieutenant and a captain from West Los Angeles Division.
What are their names?
I don't know.
Would you check the chronological record that was done by your partner and see if they were there at the time you left?
Objection,
Certainly.
Your Honor, what is the relevance of who was present at the crime scene?
Mr. Shapiro?
Yes, this all goes to credibility and impeachment. We're going to show that the 4 officers that were in charge of this crime scene left the crime scene with a very short period of time without properly preserving the crime scene, not to go to the Simpson residence for an emergency, but to go there because of the celebrity nature of Mr. Simpson.
Mr. Shapiro, the specific names of the higher-ranking officers that were present at the crime scene, I don't see that that's relevant.
The question is, was anybody left there? That
Well,
was
the
secure.
testimony was there were 3.
Okay. Would you check your chronological record to see if, in fact, there were 3 people higher ranking than you at the time you left the crime scene to go to Rockingham?
Same objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Did you leave somebody in charge of the crime scene when you left?
Yes,
Who'd you leave in charge?
my boss, Lieutenant Rogers.
And did you tell him what to do, or did he tell you what to do?
We informed him that we were going to go up there to make a notification in an attempt to make a disposition for the children, to secure that crime scene and maintain the security with the uniformed officers that were there, and that we would be back.
So it was now his job to secure the crime scene, and you were going to make your notification and find someplace for the children to go.
Well, the crime scene was secured before I ever got there, hours before I ever got there, so it was under security the whole time.
To continue that security.
Exactly,
And then 4 detectives were going to make a notification.
yes.
How many detectives does it take to make a notification?
I don't know, I think that would depend on the situation that you were in. I don't know. 1, it could take 10 if there's certain situations, I don't know.
Well, in this situation, when you were going to O.J. Simpson's residence, how many detectives do you think were necessary to make the notification?
Myself and my partner went up there, and we were accompanied by Detective Furman and Detective Phillips.
No, I know that was the fact. My question is, how many do you feel was necessary to go to make the notification?
I don't think I ever even considered that. How many do I think it's necessary to make a notification?
Yes.
Well, normally we go in pairs for a number of reasons. Number one, we have two people that are privy to the information, plus for our own personal safety. We don't go places by ourselves. So a minimum of two, and the other two officers went with us, which is not unusual.
So 4 people to make a notification is your answer?
No, you didn't. 2. The other 2 officers went with us, which is not unusual.
And of the 4 that went, they were the 4 highest-ranking investigative detectives.
No.
There were other detectives there who have been assigned to this case that had jobs that exceeded yours.
I don't understand that. I don't know what you mean.
Thank you. Were you primarily responsible for the investigation of the murder scene?
Myself and my partner, yes.
Thank you. And you had relieved Detective Phillips and Detective Vannatter?
This has
Well, I
been,
didn't
I'm sorry,
relieve
I'm sorry.
myself.
No, I'm getting a little tired myself. You had relieved the 2 West LA detectives.
They were assisting us. We had assumed the responsibility, however, they were assisting us, and they still continue to assist us to this day.
Where were the children at the point in time that you went to Mr. Simpson's residence?
I was told they were at West Los Angeles Division of the Los Angeles Police Department.
Does the Los Angeles Police Department have facilities for special people to deal with children in situations such as this?
The Los Angeles Police Department has a juvenile division. However, I don't believe they would be working that time of the morning.
Does it have people who are specially trained in dealing with children to care for their whereabouts in the event of the unfortunate death or murder of a parent or parents?
Again, they have juvenile officers that work nothing but juvenile. I would say that they are probably very competent in handling juveniles, but at that time of the day, I don't believe they would be working.
Did you check?
Did I check?
Yes.
No, I did not.
Did you check on the welfare concerns of the children before you went to Rockingham?
I spoke with Detective Phillips, who told me that they had been taken from the location to West Los Angeles Division where they were being cared for.
And did you ask them if they were being properly cared for, or if there was any real immediate concern for them, or that you were really more concerned with your criminal investigation, and that should proceed?
Well, I think being a father myself and being a grandfather, that anytime I deal with minor children in any kind of traumatic situation like this, I think they have to be attended to. And I had concern for those children because we're talking about a very traumatic thing to be taken out of your bed at midnight or 12:30 in the morning by the police in your home and removed from your home and taken to a police station. That's a very traumatic thing. And if it was my children or my grandchild, I would want whoever did that to be very, very interested in the welfare of that child.
I agree, and I hope that...
And I have that interest, believe me.
And I take it then, in that regard, you would attempt, after you couldn't reach Mr. Simpson immediately, to try to notify the grandparents, who are really the next of kin.
No, the grandparents are not the next of kin. The father of the children are the next of kin, and that's who I was trying to notify.
What about the next of kin of Nicole, the victim of this murder?
The next of kin would be her parents.
And what attempts did you make to try to notify them?
I believe they were notified that morning by telephone.
My question is, what attempts did you make to notify them?
I just said I believe my partner notified him that morning by telephone.
What time?
I don't know exactly.
Do you have any records of that?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Would that be in that murder book?
I don't know. There's a lot of information in here. I don't know everything by heart that's in here.
And for the record, the witness, when he said in here, is referring to a binder that appears to be about 4 inches thick.
all right.
Let me ask you a question. If Mr. Goldman had been the sole victim of this case under the same circumstances, would the same investigation be taking place?
Objection, irrelevant.
Sustained.
I take it the same precautions were taken to notify Mr. Goldman's next of kin.
Once he was identified, yes.
Did somebody rush over to their house?
I believe it was done by telephone, but I'm not sure.
Of the 4 detectives that you had, did any of you
Objection,
think
Your
of
Honor.
going to Mr. Goldman's house?
Objection, Your Honor, irrelevant with respect.
Sustained.
When you got to the Simpson residence, you went to the buzzer,
Yes,
and upon arriving there, did you notice any other vehicles other than the Ford Bronco?
yes.
What other vehicles did you notice?
There was another vehicle parked on Ashford, and I don't recall the description of it, but there was another vehicle parked on Ashford,
Did you take photographs of that vehicle?
not to my knowledge.
Did you observe that vehicle to see whether there were any things that looked like red spots on it?
The vehicle just appeared to be a vehicle parked there at the curb.
Did you look into that vehicle?
I didn't personally know.
Did any of the other 3 detectives, to your knowledge, look into that vehicle?
I don't have any knowledge of that.
Did you check the license plate on that vehicle and see who it was registered to?
You know, I believe that was done, yes.
Who was that registered to?
I believe the vehicle, if I recall correctly, I believe the vehicle belonged to Mr. Kalin.
But you didn't take any steps to photograph or preserve that vehicle, did you?
Not to my knowledge.
How many times do you recall that you rang the buzzer in an attempt to notify Mr. Simpson?
How many times?
Yeah. Did you ring it once?
Several. I couldn't tell you how many times.
Would you describe this, we've heard testimony about it. Would you describe what it is that you,
Sure, it's like a little square speaker box that has a button. And you press the button, you can hear the phone ringing inside the residence.
and you could clearly hear it ringing?
Yes.
How many times did it ring approximately, and this is not a great moment to be accurate, but did it ring just once, or does it continue to ring with each press?
No, it rings, you press the button, it will ring, and again, this is an estimate, maybe 6 to 8 times, and then stop ringing. You push the button, it starts the cycle again.
And you did this for 10 to 15 minutes.
At least, yeah.
Did you hear more, could you tell whether more than one phone was ringing?
No, I could only hear the one.
But, and how far away were you from the house when you were doing this?
I could make an estimate of maybe 50 to 75 feet.
That ringing was pretty loud.
Yeah, I could hear it.
Did you think that if you called on a telephone, it would ring louder?
No, I just thought maybe someone would answer the telephone. There
Well,
was just another attempt to try and locate someone.
didn't this appear to be the telephone ringing?
This appeared to be the intercom for the gate system, yes.
Or did it appear to work on a telephone?
I heard ringing.
No, you believed that a telephone was ringing, didn't you?
I think we're arguing a point. Something was ringing inside. I didn't know whether it was a telephone or whether it was an intercom system that rang to alert someone that there was a person at the front gate. I heard ringing, Mr. Shapiro.
Does the Los Angeles Police Department have the capabilities in an emergency situation of getting home phone numbers of people who may have unlisted numbers?
Not necessarily. When you have a non-published number, normally you need a search warrant to get that information.
Have you ever heard of something called a reverse directory?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
What is that?
That's a directory that has published phone numbers that coincide with addresses in it.
So you look up the address and you find the phone number.
If it's a published number, yes, if it's a published phone number.
Did you take any steps to go through official Los Angeles Police Department channels to try to ascertain the home phone number of Mr. Simpson?
Did I personally?
Yes.
No, but I'm aware of official steps that were taken.
Did any of the other 3 detectives at the time you were at the gate try to do this?
Yes, Detective Phillips contacted the West LA Watch Commander, who also made contact with West Tech Security.
So that was the only way of doing it, just through West Tech?
That was all we could do at that point, yes.
Speaking of West Tech, when West Tech was out there, Did you or your partners there ask the West Tech representatives if they were routinely notified when Mr. Simpson was gone for the house for a day or more?
I never asked that question.
What about the other three officers?
I don't know.
Did it ever occur to you that even though Mr. Simpson might have a full-time maid, that she might have a day or two off during the week?
People have days off. I never, we were told that there was supposed to be a full-time live-in maid
By whom?
by West Tech Security.
And does a full-time live-in maid to you mean 7 days a week, 24 hours a day?
I don't know, sir. I've never had a maid.
Did you ask them whether she had any scheduled days on or off?
I didn't know.
Did any of the other three detectives ask that?
I don't know that.
After there was no response from the attempts at the telephone and ringing the buzzer, did you try to use any type of amplified speakers or microphones to get the attention of Mr. Simpson?
No.
How long after you were ringing the buzzer did you make the observations of the red blotch on the Bronco?
That would have been within the first probably 10 to 20 minutes of being there.
After ringing the buzzer?
No, after getting to the location.
So you went to the Bronco first?
I saw the Bronco as I pulled in. I didn't ring the bell for the continuous time. I rang it some of the other detectives rang it some.
And then you started looking at the Bronco?
I looked at the Bronco when I first drove in, and then after ringing the bell a few times, I went around again and looked at the Bronco, and that's when I observed the items in the back of the car.
No, my question is, when did you observe the blood on the Bronco?
Within the first 10 to 20 minutes when Furman came and took me back.
Of being at the scene, of arriving at the scene?
Probably in that time frame, yes.
And is that reflected in any notes or any logs?
Not to my knowledge.
Is that an important part of this investigation?
That was a part that was continuing there, yes.
Is that an important part?
Yes.
And is that something that should be noted as to the time of discovery?
It's something that, again, if I can explain the situation, we have an emergency situation, we're not able to stop.
Your Honor.
May I finish my answer, sir?
I have an objection.
He has an objection to his own question.
No, I don't think he's objecting
No.
to his question. I think he's objecting to your answer. Detective, I believe that the question was, should the time of that discovery have been noted in your
And I'm
records?
trying to explain why it isn't, Your Honor, if I may do that.
No, my question is not why it isn't, my question is, should it have been?
Well, that goes to why it is or is not, Your Honor.
Well, first let's have the answer to should it have been, and then we'll hear your explanation.
I can't say yes or no to that. That depends on the circumstances that you're in. If you're in a gun battle someplace, you don't have time to say, hold on a second, let me write this time down. If you have an emergency situation, you don't have time to break and say, hold on a second, I need to record all of this. In this situation, it was not recorded because I didn't feel at that point that I could stop and start taking notes because things were happening too quick.
Did you hear any noise from inside the residence that caused you concern that somebody might be dying?
I heard no noise at all outside the ringing, and that caused me concern because I believe people should be there.
And your sole purpose at this time was to notify somebody of a death and to find the father of the children?
At what time, sir?
At the point in time that you're at the residence for the first 15 minutes.
Before observing the blood?
Well, you said you observed the blood immediately and then went and rang the bell.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
No, I didn't.
Isn't your testimony that the bell was rung for 15 minutes, and within the first 10 minutes, you observed the blood?
No, that's not
Let's-
true.
Let's go over that. When did you observe the blood?
I got to the location. We went to the Ashford side, parked the vehicles, got out, attempted to ring the bell. Telephone calls were made to West Tech Security. They actually ended up sending 2 units to the location. A telephone call was made to the watch commander at West LA Division. And during all of this occurrence, Detective Furman come to me and said, "I think I see blood on the vehicle." And he walked me over there. This could have been 10 minutes into it. It could have been 30 minutes into it. I can't tell you exactly.
Well, you could tell us because you made a telephone call to the watch commander.
No, I can't tell you exactly because all of this is occurring. This is not a sequence of events, Mr. Shapiro. This is a group of things that are occurring at the same time.
So right at the time the blood is spotted, you determine this to be an emergency situation, yes or no?
Right at the time it's spotted. I believe I was getting to that frame of mind prior to that because of the prior information that I had, the fact that I had left a very brutal murder scene that's very close to this location, the fact that one of the victims has a connection to Mr. Simpson. I think I was getting in that frame of mind before I ever saw the blood. I think seeing the blood was the trigger that caused me to make a decision to go over the fence.
What was the time of death of the decedents to the best of your knowledge at the time you were at Rockingham?
The time of death. Well, I can only tell you that I was informed that I believe they were found or discovered at approximately 0010 hours, which would be 10 after midnight. The
And
time of death, I would have no idea.
it was sometime before, but certainly not after.
Obviously, sometime before 0010 hours would be time of death, yes.
And what time did you decide to scale the fence for the emergency at the Simpson house?
I believe it was very close to 6 o'clock, around 6 o'clock in the morning.
Now, you went over there. When you scaled the fence, you believed that there may be hostages inside. Is that correct?
I believe there may be a whole set of
Well,
circumstances.
let's take them one by one. Was one of the set of circumstances you believed that there would be hostages inside?
I can't answer that yes or no. There could have been 1,000 scenarios of that situation.
And you
The
can't tell us.
facts, may I finish, sir? The facts that lead me up to going over the wall included a set of facts that led me to believe that this was an emergency situation.
Can you tell us whether or not you believe there was a hostage situation? Yes or no?
That could have been a possibility, yes.
And if there was a hostage situation, would you notify communications for backup?
If I was totally aware of that, that would change the entire circumstances of that entry into that location. What you're talking about is you're taking a tactical field situation and equating it to an emergency field situation, which is 2 different set of circumstances.
Did you believe that there was the possibility of people at the residence or on the grounds bleeding to death?
That was a possibility, yes.
If you truly believed that, would you call communications and ask for paramedics?
Not until I made sure that that was a safe location, no.
If you were concerned about your safety, would you go in with backup units?
Definitely,
Did you go in with backup units?
no.
If you were concerned about your safety, would you go in with vest?
Definitely,
Did you go in with vest?
no.
If you were concerned about your safety, would you go in with weapons drawn?
If I was, yes,
Did you go in with weapons drawn?
no.
Your Honor, before we go into another area, which may be more lengthy, perhaps this might be a good time. It's a few minutes early. May I suggest a break?
All right. Detective Vannatter, thank you. Please don't discuss your testimony with any other witness. And I'll see counsel in chambers, please. Recess till 1:30.